Hello! We have a lot of Mercury energy out there right now, and for both today and tomorrow, and the first part of Wednesday too. Moon is in Gemini, we have Venus and Mars in Virgo, we have Sun and Mercury in Leo. I think the biggest challenge to focus on is to not overthink, to not get caught up in the tiny details of something, of what we have to do, what we need to work on, how we need to improve, and to just drive ourselves mad with just overthinking, going in circles. Think about this in relation to overthinking. Is your thinking actually solving something? Is it helping you to realize a new solution or to craft new ideas? Or is it helping you to understand the information better? If it's not doing any of these things, then it's time to focus elsewhere and to allow your unconscious and your subconscious to be able to help you to find the solution to move forward. Thinking about it more is not going to help overthinking. So I think that's something that's really good to keep in mind. And when it comes to overthinking, there's a big element of potentially picking yourself apart with the Venus and Virgo in particular, but with the Mars and Virgo as well, of overthinking and then making yourself feel bad about things as a result of, I have so much to do. Oh, I'm bad at this. Or, resist that. If you find yourself falling into a negative mental process, a negative thought pattern, recognize it right away of, oh, that thought doesn't feel good. It hurts. We can beat ourselves up way more than other people can beat ourselves up ever. And even if somebody says something negative to us, we can hold on to it and incorporate it and integrate it into our minds. And that's a very not helpful thing to do, especially if we're just holding on to it for years or decades, we beat ourselves up so much more than other people could possibly beat us up. So that's really important. Keep that in mind moving forward throughout the next couple weeks, especially over the next couple days. Breathe. When a negative thought comes to mind, recognize it and go, oh, that doesn't make me feel good. That's not helpful. Our minds are supposed to be tools. They're supposed to be helping us. We're supposed to be guiding them instead of them guiding us. So if you find yourself getting caught up in the mind, again, just breathe. Remind yourself that if things need to be improved, that's all good. Emotion should have no part really in the analyses of the mind. I mean, obviously, we're all connected, like within our different realms of perception and functioning as human beings. And so emotion will have its place, but ultimately, ideally, we should think of it that way. What's my analysis? What is the truth? What do I need to do? Okay, cool. How do I get it done? It's like a robot. The mind is a robot, It's not consciousness. It's not the heart. It's not the body. It's just what do I need to do? It's a functioning tool. So let it function without it beating up on your emotions or feeling bad or feeling inadequate. That doesn't help. It just gets in the way. It's really important, I think, especially with the Sun and Mercury being conjunct in Leo, to come from a place. It's always important for this, but especially with this conjunction, it's so important to come from a place of self-love, of self-empowerment, of self-acceptance. So even if you have to improve upon this or improve upon that, or even if you're like, I don't like how I look in the mirror, which is a very common thing with Venus and Virgo. We want to be very cautious of this. Even if there are certain improvements we want to do, I hadn't worked out in like 4 days and I'm like, oh man, yeah, looking in the mirror, like I'm ready for some more muscle flow. I need to get back into lifting. And last night I lifted, and I'm like, oh yes. But there was no negative emotion tied to that. It wasn't I'm so weak, or anything like that. Like, be free of negativity, especially negativity that has to do with emotions. That is so important, of course, in and of itself, needless to say, but all the more so because Sun and Mercury being conjunct in Leo, all of our focus as individuals right now, all of our perspectives are very much warped by our own experiences and by our own feelings. And that's not necessarily a negative thing. Obviously, we want to stay in tune with reality and the truth regardless. But all of our minds are being very much influenced by our hearts. They're very predisposed to only seeing things from our perspective. And of course, yes, the egotistical part of that we need to be mindful of, but also the other part where, again, it can feed into the overthinking. If we are thinking, oh, this is so bad. This is so, again, that can feed into the negative emotional impact of those thoughts because we're blowing stuff way out of proportion, not only with our mind, but also with our hearts too. We're just like, oh, so keep that in mind. I think so many people going through the world at this time who seem to have a superiority complex are actually really suffering from an inferiority complex. They're not really consciously aware of what's going on with the Virgo, whether they know astrology or not. You don't have to necessarily know astrology to be aware of negative thought processes and whatnot. Of course, it helps so much to know astrology with these things. But I think some people who are dramatic and acting so far out there in temper tantrums and whatnot, they're actually coming from a place of feeling very deeply insecure. Some people are just narcissistic and they do that during any time. They're just being inflamed during this time. But that's a very small percentage of the human population, like 1% or less than 1%, something like that. So the vast majority of us, if we're just feeling very touchy, very, egotistical or superiority complex, we're putting up a front, that's probably because we're coming from a inferiority place, a feeling of feeling very insecure. So again, all the more reason, with Sun and Mercury being conjunct in Leo, really be mindful that what you're feeling and what you're thinking of during this time is it can be, even for those of us practicing awareness, it can be very skewed. It can be very, again, easy to blow stuff out of proportion, easy to beat up on ourselves. So let's breathe. Let's turn all of this into the positive. Let's focus on what we have to do to grow, to improve. And then we can use the best of the Virgo. We're not beating ourselves up. We're just recognizing we have infinite room for improvement in every realm, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. It's improvement. Maybe is not even the best word for it. Exploration, growth. I think that's a good way. Growth, because Earth energy is all about nature. It's all about the trees, and I think treating ourselves like our greatest garden is always good, and especially during this time, it helps to keep things in perspective. Where it's like, well, if I want to have the beautiful blossoming flower, I got to do the work to take out the weeds, in my psyche, in my daily habits, in whatever realm it is that we're seeking to improve upon. And it takes time, and it takes that diligent focus, and we gotta water it, and we gotta tend to ourselves. We gotta be gentle. You can't just yell at a flower and say grow. We can't I love that saying of don't pick out a flower to see if the roots are growing. Be gentle with it, have faith in the long term, and just work really hard in what seems to be the best way to improve and to grow. Again, to grow is the better word. And if we're handling this well, then I think we're going to be able to handle the pressure, the great pressure. We've talked about this in previous transit videos, but transiting Saturn is directly opposite Sun, as we talked about, I think about 6 days ago or so. We were talking about more about this when this is coming. So there's a lot of pressure as per our individual growth. And if you're taking care of those little details each day, you're doing the things that might not seem like it directly helps, but it really does. If you're eating well, absolutely these things directly help. If you're cleaning your environment, you're showing your mind that it has a lot of space to focus on other things besides what's right around it. It does affect us. If we have trash and around us, if we're putting trash into our bodies, those little things, it increases our productivity and our wellness and well-being in very specific ways, and it also decreases it in other ways too. So if you feel yourself just down, get it back into the little details of life, make it better. That simple. And if we're doing these things, then everything else should flow pretty nice. With all this Leo, the great positive is being able to have fun, being able to learn more about ourselves, being able to express ourselves, being able to laugh, being able to play, and to avoid drama, to avoid exploding. And even if other people are, again, probably going through an inferiority complex, so they're putting forth a front and a superiority complex, we are able to not get involved and able to not put fuel in the fire. And that's helping everybody, let alone it's helping our hearts to get out of the mess. If other people want to get in a mess, that's totally fine. But we have that choice as human beings always. And I think it's especially highlighted during this time, the power of our minds and our individual ego selves. And again, I don't mean ego in a negative sense. As I've said before, ego, there's the shadow side of ego, the temper tantrums, all that stuff. The inner child who's just, who's being a brat. We all have it within us doesn't matter what age we are. And then we have the beautiful inner child, which is fire energy at its best, ego at its best, where we're enjoying being an individual self and just expressing ourselves. And sometimes we might say or do things that we go, oh, that wasn't the best. That kind of, it's fire energy. It's burning. We don't control it, but we learn from that, and we always have pure intentions at our best with fire energy. And I think that's a beautiful thing about this particular conjunction, is we can have really wonderful intentions and focus on the positivity in life, and spreading that emotion in a positive way instead of spreading it in a negative way. That's very egoistic and very negative egoistic and very, again, dramatic. And one last thing, again, it is so important during this time, really for the rest of this year and next year and the first part of the year after that. But sooner the better with Saturn. It's a marathon. We want to get on it right away. With Saturn being opposite Sun and Mercury, focus on your long-term vision. Focus on how you need to grow, what you can change as per your mindset. A lot of people are going to be feeling very down during this time. And the key to that, again, part of it is going to be that Virgo and working with improving in tangible ways, every realm of life, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. But part of it also is just going to be shifting our focus and recognizing with this Leo energy our limitations and being at peace with that. I can only do so much as a human being with so much time and energy. It's just a fact. And being at peace with that, we can learn about our limitations. And also, when we learn about our limitations, we learn about also what we can do. We understand the structure of, okay, I can't do this, and this, but I can do this, and that. It helps us to understand our focus. It helps us to be very practical. So if you're feeling limited, focus on what you can do. Focus on what you can say. Focus on what you already are and grow from there. And again, keep that in mind. We're running a marathon here. It takes a while to work with Saturn energy. But now is a really good checkpoint of, okay, what do I need to get better at? What am I doing really good? Reinforce the ego in positive ways too. Fuel the flames. And how do we move forward from here? And over the next couple of years. Or the next 30 years. Again, this is a grand vision time with Saturn in Aquarius. So the rest of my life can be really helpful. Infinite love to you, my friends. Namaste. Peace.